A group of primates gains human intelligence and emotions, and in order to achieve their freedom, they will have to fight. The movie begins with a bunch of monkeys walking in a forest when suddenly some men with machetes start chasing them. They are pursued, and one of the monkeys gets caught in a trap and taken away scared in a truck. In a room, a scientist observes chimpanzee number 9, nicknamed Bright Eyes, who shows remarkable intelligence by correctly placing the pieces in their positions, impressing them. Will, one of the scientists, rushes to inform his boss, Steve, that the substance given to the chimpanzee worked and can now be used in humans. Then, Steve tells him to present his research to the board, since a lot of money is involved. During his presentation to the board, Will shows chimpanzee number 9 attempting to assemble the Tower of Hanoi, which involves moving the tower from one peg to another without placing a larger block on top of a smaller one, but she fails to complete the task. So they gave her ALZ-112, which is a genesis therapy that allows the brain to create its own cells and heal itself, which would be the cure for Alzheimer's. In her cell, the chimpanzee becomes very agitated and even grabs a scientist's arm. One of them offers her soda, and the other tries to grab her but fails. In this way, the animal ends up escaping. Meanwhile, Will continues explaining that the medicine had only one side effect, where for some reason, the chimpanzee's iris displays green spots. Bright Eyes keeps running and causing chaos in the laboratory. When Will and Steve are finishing their speech, chimpanzee number 9 jumps through the glass of the room they are in, and one of the security guards shoots her multiple times. Franklin, one of the scientists, asks Steve not to harm the chimpanzees, but the executive believes they are contaminated and insists on sacrificing them. Steve says that the board rejected Will's proposal, who insists on the effectiveness and potential of the medicine, but the executive tells him to start again from the first stage with the drug. Franklin finds chimpanzee number 9's baby and shows it to Will, who understands that she wasn't being aggressive. She was being protective. The scientist also hands the baby to Will to take home while he looks for a shelter, but he says it's company property, and Franklin explains that he was ordered to sacrifice it, but he won't do that. Arriving home, his father's nurse is leaving, so Will goes to him as he plays the piano, then shows him the baby chimpanzee, and he becomes excited. In the middle of the night, Will takes the little animal and has an affectionate moment with him. In the morning, Charles, Will's father, looks for his car keys, and his son tells him he doesn't drive anymore and asks him to feed the chimpanzee, who takes the bottle by himself. The chimpanzee is named Caesar, and he shows signs of elevated intelligence, so Will keeps him. At 18 months, Caesar uses sign language with up to 24 words. At 2 years old, he assembles puzzles with pieces meant for 8-year-old children, and at 3 years old, he continues to display many abilities that surpass human capabilities. This is what Will states in his report, also adding that the green in the animal's eyes indicates that ALZ-112 was passed genetically, and the drug in his system accelerated brain function. Charles argues with his nurse over a lamp, and she tells him she can't do it anymore and that his place is in the nursing home. In the laboratory, Will discreetly takes some vials of the 112, stores them in his refrigerator, and applies one to his father. Caesar sees everything. Will wakes up and sees his father playing the piano very well, while Caesar watches children playing in the street. Will examines his father, who believes he is no longer sick, and then they look for Caesar, who invades a house, and the neighbor wants to scare him away with a baseball bat. However, he is rescued, and the worst doesn't happen. Will takes him to the veterinarian because of an injury to his leg. Caesar uses sign language, and the woman is impressed. She asks what he said, and Will replies that he should ask her out. At Will's home, Caroline, the veterinarian, observes Caesar and finds him impressive. She suggests taking him outdoors, so they go to a park. Will takes off Caesar's leash and he bends down asking for permission. As soon as he is allowed, he runs happily through the forest. Minutes later, he climbs up a tree while his owners watch him. He jumps on several branches until he reaches the top. 5 years later, he still goes to the park with Will and his girlfriend Caroline. As they are leaving, a family arrives with a dog that barks at Caesar, and he responds by threatening back, but Will pulls him by the leash. Caesar gets upset as he thinks he is a pet. Will tells him he is not, and shows him the place where he works, explaining to the chimpanzee that it's where he was born, and his mother used to stay there too, but she is no longer there because she died, so he took him to live with him. Will also reveals that his mother took the same medication he gives his father, and she passed it on to him, which is why he is so intelligent. Caroline asks for an explanation, and Will confesses that he took him out of the laboratory to save his life, and had no idea that the effects would be passed on to Caesar, showing that his intelligence has been increasing. Caroline says that this is wrong because he is trying to control something that should not be controlled. At lunchtime, Charles uses the fork incorrectly, and Caesar helps him. Afterward, Will studies and realizes that his father's body has developed antibodies, rendering the medication ineffective, and the disease will return more aggressively. Charles leaves the house and spots a Mustang he believes is his. He gets into the car and tries to drive it, but ends up hitting the car in front and the one behind. Quickly, the actual owner of the car appears and forcefully takes him out, and they argue. Caesar observes the situation, approaches them, jumps on the man and hits him. The man retaliates and runs away. Caesar chases after him and manages to catch up, and after knocking him down, he bites his finger. People watch with fear. As a result, animal control takes Caesar away, and he becomes scared. But Will and Caroline calm him down. John, the man from the animal center, leads them to a room, and Caesar asks for Will's permission to enter, analyzing the place and being impressed. The owner says he will adapt quickly, and Caesar becomes very upset with Will during their farewell. Dodge, John's son, lures Caesar, saying he can set him free. But when the primate approaches him, Dodge locks him in a small cell in a place with several other monkeys trapped, and they all become hysterical trying to get out. A woman informs Will that it will take 90 days for him to make an appeal, but he refuses and tells her to arrange it immediately. However, the woman says that's how it is, and he is lucky they are not going to euthanize the animal. Charles's disease continues to progress. Will talks to Steve about the ALZ-112, and the businessman says it doesn't work. Then, Will reveals that he treated his father with the medicine and he improved and increased his intelligence. However, his body developed antibodies. So now Will has developed an improved version of the 112. Steve gets excited and tells him to test it on the chimpanzees. In the monkey's prison, Dodge gives Caesar a food hose, and Caesar playfully throws some on his face and laughs at the situation. The man gets angry and then sprays water on him with a hose. After a few hours, Caesar draws the window of his home on the cell wall. In the laboratory, 10 chimpanzees are delivered, and one of them is Koba, who asks for cookies. Will chooses him to be tested while Steve watches. The scientists prepare the animal and administer the medication through inhalation, but Koba has an aggressive reaction. Franklin inhales a bit of the drug but quickly puts on his mask, and they proceed. In the monkey's prison, Caesar goes to the social area and encounters several other chimpanzees who watch him. He throws a ball to one of them, but he crushes it, sniffs his clothes, and tears them off. The leader of the chimpanzees strikes Caesar while the others scream. Caesar is chased and tries to escape by climbing a tree but falls to the ground. When he is about to be attacked again, Dodge shoots a sedative at the primate. Steve looks at Koba, and the chimpanzee writes Steve's last name. Will and Franklin analyze him, and Franklin sneezes, noticing there is blood in his discharge. Caesar communicates with an orangutan through sign language, who explains that he used to be a circus orangutan. John shoots a monkey and tells his son to remove the body. Will and Caroline visit Caesar and notice he is injured. Will pushes Dodge and says he will take Caesar out of there, but John says he cannot do that without a court order. With that, he suspects they are harming the chimpanzee. They say goodbye, and Caesar becomes angry because he still can't go back home. Frustrated, he erases the drawing on the wall of his cell. In the social area, he climbs the tree and pays attention to the place. Dodge brings a friend and some girls to where the monkeys are kept, and the girls look around. Dodge uses a shock device on a cell, frightening all the monkeys. Caesar calls Dodge's friend over and grabs him, surprising them. They leave, but Caesar manages to take the man's pocket knife. Caesar uses the knife to unlock his cell, goes to the social area, and also unlocks the cell of the largest primate in the place. The gorilla runs out, jumping around, and the leader of the chimpanzees is also freed. Caesar hits him with a can, but then spares him from further aggression, and this scene is witnessed by everyone, causing the leader to bow to him. Will wants to use the new medication on his father, but Charles asks him not to do it, and both of them feel sad knowing that he will deteriorate. In the morning, Will realizes that his father has passed away, so he packs Charles's belongings. He arrives at the laboratory and sees Koba being tested again. He inquires about Franklin, who is sick. The scientist then states that he did not authorize the tests, but Steve insists that he did because he believes the drug works. Will tells them to stop the tests until they know what they are dealing with, but his boss argues that they are dealing with a drug that will make a lot of money. Will emphasizes that there are risks, and they argue, leading him to resign. However, Steve says they will continue without him. Will stresses that they don't know what they are dealing with, and Steve responds that this is why they usually test on chimpanzees. Franklin goes to Will's house, calls for him, but there is no response. The neighbor shows up, and Franklin sneezes blood onto the neighbor's shirt, who tells him to leave. Will takes a package of money to John to bribe him into releasing Caesar. John opens the cell, but Caesar is reluctant and doesn't come out. closing the cell in front of Will, who is left puzzled and eventually leaves. Caesar offers a cookie to another chimpanzee and opens his cell, prompting him to give cookies to all the others. The orangutan asks why he gave the cookies, and Caesar replies that the monkeys alone are weak, but together they are strong. Some animals fight, and one of the caretakers closes the door, at which moment Caesar observes the password. During the night, Caesar unlocks the door using the password, follows a path, opens another door, and escapes through the roof. Dodge goes out to see if something is happening, but doesn't notice anything. Caesar goes to Will's house while he and Caroline are sleeping and takes the new medication from the refrigerator. He returns to the enclosure and releases the substance into the cells for all the monkeys to inhale. In the morning, Dodge wakes up the primates, and each of them passes by Caesar, displaying green eyes due to the substance. Dodge argues with another employee, thinking that he took his cookie. John sees all the monkeys together, but he doesn't pay much attention. Meanwhile, many substances are being manufactured in the laboratory. A woman goes to Franklin's apartment and notices that he is dead in his bed. Dodge sees Caesar alone in the social area, approaches him with the shock device, and confronts him. The other employee stands by with a tranquilizer gun, and the monkeys observe. Dodge shocks him a few times, but Caesar reacts by grabbing his arm and manages to say the word no. Then he hits the man. He keeps repeating the word and drags Dodge into a cell, the next step being to free the other monkeys. The employee appears and tries to escape, but the monkeys catch him, and Caesar locks him in a cell as well. Dodge gets out of the cell and grabs the shock device, but as he turns it on, Caesar sprays water on him with a hose, electrocuting him. In this way, all the monkeys escape through the roof. Will wakes up and senses something strange, tries to call the animal center, but no one answers. The monkeys roam the city and head toward the center. Will and Caroline go to the animal center, find Dodge's body, the vial of the substance, and the employee in a cell, who says that the chimpanzee spoke. People on the street notice the monkeys jumping through the trees. John arrives at work and finds several police vehicles. They watch the security footage, which shows Dodge and Caesar. The police request reinforcements, and Will and Caroline go after the monkeys. The primates invade the laboratory, smashing everything in their path, and Koba is also freed. Steve receives a call informing him that Franklin is dead due to exposure to the 1.13 virus. He enters the laboratory and finds everything in ruins, with the monkeys watching him. They jump from the building and head to another location. The businessman boards the police helicopter and says they need to neutralize the invaders. The monkeys enter a zoo, freeing other chimpanzees and taking parts of the fence. The police manage to catch one of them, but others appear with iron bars and throw them at the police car, saving their comrade and getting him out of there. The chimpanzees cause a great commotion in the streets, confronting the police by throwing objects at them and then hitching a ride on a tram. They arrive at a bridge, passing between the cars. The helicopter requests police blockades while the monkeys continue ahead. The police arm themselves and block the end of the bridge. The police officer in the helicopter authorizes shooting the animals when they arrive. Finally, Will and Caroline arrive, but civilians are forced to evacuate the area. Caesar orders the monkeys to stop and gives the command to climb and also to pass underneath. Will says he needs to get to Caesar, so Caroline creates a distraction, and the scientist manages to pass through. The police on horseback strike the chimpanzees. Caesar knocks down one of them, and the gorilla takes down another. When the gorilla is about to kill the man, Caesar orders him to stop. The police shoot one of the animals, causing it to fall, but the others continue forward. The monkeys push a bus and use it as a shield, and the men shoot at them but stop when they see it's not working. Caesar appears riding a horse, and at that moment, his group jumps on the police officers, fighting and hitting them, managing to destroy several cars. Will arrives, shouting Caesar's name, and then the helicopter shoots continuously, hitting some monkeys. Caesar throws a chain at them, stopping the attack, but another man continues shooting. Then the gorilla jumps in front of the helicopter, causing it to crash onto the bridge and explode. Caesar embraces his friend, who dies in his arms after this heroic act. Steve calls for help, but Caesar just looks at him and ignores him. Koba arrives with a look of hatred and pushes Steve, making him fall into the water. After getting rid of their enemies, the primates continue running. Will takes a car to go after Caesar, then he calls out to him in the forest. At that moment, Koba knocks him down, and then Caesar arrives and tells him to leave. Will apologizes to Caesar and asks him to come back home, but Caesar says that he is already home, leaving Will astonished but understanding the situation. Then Caesar and the other monkeys climb up the tree until they reach the top. In the post-credit scenes, Will's neighbor takes a taxi, and at the airport, he notices his nose bleeding, and then the movie ends.